So something that, I mean, we have difficulty with in the garden, I guess if I put it that way, are weeds. The other problem that we have as gardeners, if we are working full time, is we can run out of time. So we might plan to weed the garden on the weekend or an evening, but something crops up and we don't get a chance. And we go, not to worry, I'll do that later on. But Mother Nature won't hang about. If they're going to grow, they're going to grow, and then the following week they've actually grown about 1.5 foot or even more. So how do we deal with it? The other problem, of course, is the fact that you've spent money on plants and you've created a border and you've been all excited, which you did in the spring, which is a good time to do it, where there were no weeds. So you cleared your piece of land, you put your plants in and thought, right, I'm going to have a super border. But if you run out of time and the weeds have grown, you're now overwhelmed, you're overfaced. How do I solve the problem of all the weeds? So I'm going to give you a few tips. First of all, have something in the potting shed which is going to be useful to you. So certainly some gloves that are long, because there are nasty weeds like nettles that will hurt, and thistles. An ordinary pair of gloves is obviously very useful because again, while weeding you might need to do that, because within our soil sometimes we've got broken bits of glass or pottery, so again wearing gloves is probably sensible. Pair of secateurs, hand fork, getting out things like the buttercups or whatnot. And this is the one that is sort of useful to you, is an old knife of some description, so a bread knife or an old sort of like serrated edged knife that maybe was to, you know, cut meat in the kitchen. But if you've got an old one, or go to a charity shop and see if you can find one in there, if they can sell knives, not sure about that. But it's useful for cutting through the roots, which I'll give you a demonstration on. So basically, here is a border that has been planted up, but there has been no weeding done whatsoever, because again, time disappeared. Right? There was other things to do, things to pot up, things to sort out. So the weeds have grown and grown. Now, again, I still haven't got a day to weed this, so I'm going to do a few useful things. So, first job, anything that you can get hold of that you can then pull out. So somewhere, if there was a thistle in here, this would be a good example, because if you get hold of the thistle and pull it out of the ground, so hold it low, pull the thistle out, it'll snap off the root, but you've got rid of all that top part which is going to flower and seed all over your garden. So in other words, you've given yourself some time before it comes up again, and that's mainly the method that we're doing today. So if I just stick these on, in this little section here there's obviously quite a lot of weeds. Ideally I'd like to dig them all out, but I've also got some perennial plants that are newly planted and I don't want to disturb their roots, so I'm going to try and get as much out as I can by hand. Now, yes, it's snapped off. I don't mind it snapped off, I can deal with that later on, but I've got rid of the flowering part that's coming up. That one's got the root on, so that's good. That's snapped, as is that, right. So there's the milk thistle, which has quickly gone from this area. Now the couch grass is a different thing, because I know the roots are in there and ideally I could do with getting them out, but I haven't got time. So it's the same thing again. As low as you can go down, pull away as much as you can, missing the plants that you've bought, and then finally, a big handful of weeds within seconds gone. This is now showing me where the plants are. Now I've got a lovely plant down here which is a dead nettle with pink flowers. Right next to it there's a dock, and I haven't got time to dig out the dock, so I get my little knife, move as much of the leaf away, and then with my knife I'm literally going to go into the soil and find that root and cut. Now I know what you're all saying, but it'll come back again. It will. But doing this, I've saved myself some time, because I need to get through the whole border and get rid of as much weed as I can get rid of now, so my new plants can thrive, because the weed is dominating my new plants. And obviously I've done all this because I want to have a lovely border full of colour. Now what I'm doing now, which I've just done automatically because this is what happens when you've gardened for most of your life, I'm just seeing what else is down here that shouldn't be there and pulling it out. Right. And of course I've got some nettles there. Now those nettles don't look too bad. If they were right up here, 3 foot tall, I might do a different method. But this one, I'm just going to see if I can get it out. Yes, go. All right. So I was hoping that they were young nettles. So from not being able to see this particular plant and it having a bit of a hard time, we've now got that plant back, as with the dead nettle here. So it's a mixture of getting away the foliage that you don't want, and then if you've got the time you can weed round the plants that you've invested your money into, just to give it that bit of space so it can grow away. Right, so my main thought here is very quickly, and do a little bit more. Got another dead nettle here. Obviously you've got to watch where your feet are, because you don't want to be standing on your plants. So it's a speedy, it's a bit like, I suppose if you sort of like think about like a lawnmower, that you go along the grass and you just chop the grass off, and then the lawn doesn't flower. The dandelions and the clover in the lawn also don't flower because they're all chopped off. This is the same method as that, but we're just obviously dealing with larger plants in the perennial border. And I think that's sort of hopefully an ideal kind of tip for you, because we always think we have to get rid of every single bit of the weed, otherwise we have a problem. Now if I did that and spent a whole day weeding this border and got it lovely and neat and tidy, we'd get a downpour of rain, and then all the weed seed that are in this border will go, I'm going to grow. So before I know it, the border is full of weed again. So this method gives your plants room to grow, because you keep pulling the top off the weeds. Much quicker, gets your border more able to be established, and then next year you don't have the same problem, because A, you've controlled the weed to a degree, and also your plants have doubled or trebled in size, so there's less room for weeds. And then again you think in your head, right, this time I will start my weeding in Easter rather than July, which is too late, or June as we're in at the moment.